everybody. Welcome. It's Gretchen Parlato here. I'm so grateful to be here on the alternative venues for jazz. Thank you, Gail Boyd, for having me. I watched a few, and it's such a unique and needed, necessary way for us to connect and communicate and share stories, since we can't really do that in person yet. But as everyone has mentioned, we hope, we can be optimistic and hope that shortly we will be able to be touching each other, or at least feeling our energy in the same room. But in the meantime, here we are. So welcome. Thank you for joining. I thought I would use this time to share a little insight and kind of behind background information about my new album. I have a new album coming out on Friday. So today is Monday, March 1st. It's coming out on Friday, March 5th. And it's on Edition Records. And I'm so grateful to, for many reasons, really, to have connected with the label, to have them help me bring this to life. And really to kind of reflect back on this last year and have had something to focus on, and something to finally share. It was recorded 2 years ago, actually, 2 years ago in New York City. And when I was living there, I'm in Los Angeles now, but I used to live in New York City and in New Jersey for 16 years. And so it's been a while. We recorded, a couple years ago, and it's just the way things go. The process took time, but it's all, meant to be, and it feels like it's the perfect time to kind of have something to release. So I'll tell you about the project in case you haven't heard. There's 3 singles that are out now that you can hear, but the full album is out on Friday, and it's kind of an honoring of my my admiration, my adoration, my love of Brazilian music. That's always been kind of woven into other bands and other projects, but I never really gave a complete focus to that genre before. And it kind of has a nostalgia to it, kind of a realization that it was something that was a love from a long time ago. It actually stems back to when I was about 13 years old. I tell this story a lot, but I was about 13. I have a memory of sitting on the floor and looking through my mother's vinyl collection, which was, in a big shelf, but you could it was floor level. You could sit on the floor and just kind of sort through. And there was an album that struck me. It popped out, probably visually first. It was Gets Gilberto, Jobim, the classic bossa nova album, and it struck me because it has this beautiful, abstract, bright, like orange and yellow painting on it on the cover. So that was interesting to me even at that age, and I pulled it out and flipped it over and took a look and put it put the needle down, and it was just this moment of just, it was just falling in love with the sound of João Gilberto's voice, of just the whole texture of bossa nova. And I was 13, so I liked to sing. I was mostly, singing in choirs and singing a lot of musical theater, a lot of like big voice, big belting out and character voices. And this was maybe the first time that I had heard something that was really understated and really intimate, but yet so powerful, and it had an impact because at that age especially, I had that part of me, I had a side of me that was understated, that was intimate, that was shy and quiet, but there was so much that I, had inside that people might not have seen at that time. I guess it's pretty common, when you're a teenager, a preteen, that you're just kind of finding yourself, and that was a moment that kind of gave me validation that it was okay to have an approach that was more, I keep using the same words. It was, yeah, intimate, understated, and kind of delicate and fragile, and that can be okay, and that can be just as powerful as something that's really obvious and loud in volume, but the intensity can be strong. So I have this moment, and it stayed with me. So that path kind of was opened in that moment. And I got interested in jazz some years later, and it always kind of paralleled to have like Brazilian music, kind of specifically. Once I found João Gilberto, I didn't really go that much farther with Brazilian music. I know bossa nova was like such a teaching in itself, but I always kind of took that with me and incorporated that. But cut 2 years later, where I was, a mother, and had my son Marley. He just turned 7, so this is some years ago when he was little. Just those early years of motherhood, kind of taking a step back and wanting to focus on just being home more, and being present and available, and kind of providing a really comfortable and settling home. So that's what that's where my head was, and I didn't really have a lot of inspiration, for new music. I didn't give myself time, really. Anyone out there that knows about the parenthood years, you kind of give yourself away in the beginning, and in a beautiful way. And but yeah, as a creative artist, it was I just didn't give that energy to myself. I gave it to my son. But I did have a moment where I was asked to sing with a Brazilian group, and the leader of the group was Marcel Camargo. And I mention him because he's the guitarist and the musical director of this project. So he had me sing with him. We go way back. We went to UCLA together. And he was a big part. He's from Brazil. He's a big part of my knowledge and kind of getting into Brazilian music, in my 20s. So we've stayed in touch, and he had me sing with him. And I had this moment as having just had my son, loving to sing, obviously, but not really having anything new to share. And it was a moment singing with him in this setting, in this context, that just this, if you think of it as a wave or a spark of creativity, just came over me, like a realization of like, this is what I should do next. This feels really comfortable. And it has, again, this nostalgia. I've probably flashed back to that, 13-year-old self sitting on the floor, just like that love for something that really means something to you, that's kind of always been there, and you don't have to try. I was really searching so much for something new and not realizing that there was something there. I just kind of had to get out of my own way and remove the layers. So I asked Marcel to be the musical director and create this project, and I kind of extracted members of that group. So it's Artyom Manoukian on cello, and Leo Costa on drums and percussion. He kind of plays a hybrid of both. So that's the core group. So guitar, cello, and drums, percussion. So yeah, note that there's no bass, but the cello is kind of taking over that role, and I'm sure people know Artyom. If you don't, he's just an incredible player who has played bass, but kind of can play the cello in that role of a bass player, but also can kind of do anything. So it has that real intimacy and that really lovely texture that I wanted to create, and it's just been so much fun. This was a handful of years ago, and we've been able to develop material, and we did play around in Mexico and in Australia and New Zealand, and and in New York City too, at the Jazz Standard. And we played at the Jazz Standard right before we went into the studio to record 2 years ago. So it was a really great, process to create the album. We had the pleasure of some guests. Gerald Clayton is on a couple tracks, and Mark Juliana is on a couple tracks, and Airto is on one track. That's all you need, is just one track for him. So it's really so special to kind of have this core group, but to be able to kind of unravel it a little bit and have a really full sound sometimes, but then get into some different textures with some different instrumentation. So it was recorded that long ago, kind of in the works, developing, and didn't really connect with how to put it out until last spring, connecting with Edition Records. So that felt wonderful to to finally have a home and have a team, working to finally release the project. And I knew what the band was called, Flor. I knew the album I wanted to be called titled Flor, which means flower in Portuguese. And it's the imagery is two things, I think, with this project. It's has a theme of a flower, and it has a theme that's connected of motherhood. So with the idea of a flower, I think of my connection to that as a mother. So I had this thought of how there might be a flower, especially on the East Coast when the seasons are so extreme. You might have, let's say a tulip or something that comes out, emerges in the spring, but there's this whole season of it being dormant in the winter, and you don't see it. It's as if nothing is there on the ground. But in reality, there's so much happening underground. It never went anywhere. It was just covered. It just kind of went into its hiding, and then it emerges in the spring, and it just opens, and it's this beautiful thing. And I had this kind of connection to that as a woman, as a mother, of just kind of retreating and going into that dormant state. Supposedly, it's not really dormant, but to the outside world, it was as if I had kind of disappeared, perhaps. But in reality, underground in the house, everything was happening. Everything was going on, and being a mom and raising a child and having that relate to my art was everything. Kind of figuring out that balance was everything. So I love this idea of it kind of becoming this returning, a blossoming, an opening, an awakening, a return. And then the idea of a flower, how it's when it's in its perfect state, it's perfect. It's you see it, and there's so much there. There's so much detail to study. There's so much, you really have to lean in. Somebody could just walk by, a garden and not notice, but other people will actually get down. Similar to how I got down on the floor to scroll through those records. You have to get down sometimes and really, pay attention to the detail. So that's how I saw myself. That's how I saw my voice. It's not really obvious. It's something that you kind of have to be in the right space to appreciate or to want to have around. So I think of flowers in that way too, and it's such a fleeting moment. It doesn't last. They're in that state for a matter of days, and then they die, and that's life, and that's death, and that's the whole process of all of our existence. So and that connects to motherhood too. It's like that I'm talking about early years and having a baby, and now my son is 7, and those years they happened, but they're gone, and everyone can relate to that in our life. Even just in this last year, you think of where you were last January before we really realized what was happening in life and what was about to be taken away. And just, it makes you realize how precious everything is. So that idea of a flower being in this precious state, and music being in a precious state, our time being precious was really important as a theme. And obviously motherhood is a theme too. There's lots of lyrical content that reflects on my being able to finally put it into words of that time. Of it was a very private time, but I finally was able to write about being a mom and connecting and with my son, and just the ups and downs and the ins and outs, and just how it completely is amazing and changes you, and you laugh and you cry, and it's so intense and so beautiful and so incredible. So there's a lot of that idea as well. And then, I've thought about this as I was preparing today. The idea of motherhood is also for my own mom. She was the one who had this music collection that was available to me. And she's this beautiful artist. And so when I thought last year, connecting with the label and finally thinking, okay, how do we want to visually present the project? I thought, I would love for my mom to do something, and so we connected on her creating some really beautiful watercolor flowers. So I wanted her to kind of visually put in, have something visually be there that represents, if you could visualize the music, if you could see it in the air and have this, and it was represented in flowers, what would that look like? So I'm sure you guys have seen, or you can search for it if you want, but the cover is available to you, everywhere. So that's her artwork. That's my mom. So she did a drawing, a line drawing of my face, and then there's flowers that are emerging from my heart and then into kind of floating away. So that's exactly how I hope that the music is being felt. And when I close my eyes, which obviously, if you know me, I close my eyes a lot when I sing, that's what I'm doing. I'm not shutting anything out, but I'm really kind of creating this whole world inside my head of how I can see the music and feel the music. So it has that the theme of motherhood kind of extends there. And then it goes the other way too, because now my son was old enough to participate in the album. So he's singing on the album, and the bandmates' children are voices on the album. We have family, friends, and so there's a whole collection and a community of children that we're, passing this music on to and having them be a part of the message, and that's so it. I would hope that it continues. There's a lineage there, and then it can continue. So yeah, thinking of the story of this, and my kind of return album, it had an impact a while ago when I thought, well, I've taken some years off and now I'm coming back with something. It seemed unique to me, and now it's actually it's kind of universal to everybody. I think everybody has had that kind of like dormancy in their lives this last year, and we're still in it. So everybody needs a return. Everybody needs, that can relate to that feeling of kind of being home and kind of settling and nurturing and taking care, hopefully, and just feeling the ups and downs, and then coming back out. So this could be representative to everybody, and though we're not completely out yet, it does seem fitting for this for the album to be released in spring. I know in LA it feels like spring, might not feel like that everywhere else in the world, but the jasmine is in bloom here in the house. So it does feel like there's growth and there's life happening. And another point that I like to make, speaking of flowers, is just how the reflection of what they mean in our lives. Speaking of the up and the down, and just kind of accepting. A lot of the themes of the album are about acceptance and letting go and being present in the moment. And I think of how we use flowers in that way. You have, the offering of flowers can be for any occasion. If there's a birth, you offer flowers. If there's a wedding, if there's something joyful, you offer flowers. If there's somebody has passed away and there's a funeral, there's a service, you're mourning, there's flowers. So flowers are a part of every emotion, that we have, in every kind of gathering that we have. And so I liked that idea as well. I liked that they can represent, our joy and our sorrow and our connection. And just kind of allowing people to kind of take a moment, maybe whatever's happening in your life. If there's a flower in front of you and you're able to appreciate it, you actually stop and you can be present and mindful in that moment. So those are a lot of the themes. I know I see some questions and comments. I'll take a look at that. I just wanted to make sure I mention. The other thing I was going to mention was that the album, it's something new, but it's something that it's kind of treated in the same way that other projects have been, where there's a collection of original material, of standards kind of reworked, and covers of pop music, of rock music, of R&B. So it's similar in that sense. We have some standard material, standard Brazilian material, even some Bach. We have a Roy Hargrove piece, and then some originals, a song that I wrote called Wonderful that you can hear already now. And Magnus is a song that people might know if they know my repertoire. And Magnus himself is actually singing on this song, so I'm excited for people to hear him. He's 15 years old now. When he made up the chorus, he was not even 5, so it's been a while. And then there's a piece that I wrote called "What Does a Lion Say?" And that's I wrote the lyric. The music was written by Chris Morrissey, and that's a piece that really reflects on those early years of motherhood. And then there's covers. So there are other 2 singles that you can hear now are covers. We have a David Bowie cover, No Plan, and then Anita Baker, Sweet Love. We kind of reworked. So it's out Friday, and I'm so excited. I can't believe it's finally here. It's finally the time to share the music. So that's my joy, and that's been my what's kind of kept me going through this year. And let me look over here at these comments. Let's see. Thank you. Talking about the recording. Some of these are good questions. What inspires me to write a lyric? How do you interpret the written word in song? That's good. Who are some of my mentors? What lessons did I learn from them? Okay. Well, yeah, so I think, my lyrics are actually pretty, I started to collect all of my lyrics this last year to kind of think of an idea of maybe, putting them out in a book form or something. And it was interesting to see them all together. And my first thought of myself, maybe a slight critical one, was like, they're kind of all about the same thing. They're kind of, I'm using the same kind of language, and it's but I guess you could say it has a theme in it, and it has, I'm writing about my life. I'm writing about, and mostly I write about being my feeling of trying to figure out what it feels like, to change and to grow and to go through heartache and sorrow, and to trust that, to trust that that's okay, and to connect on that, and to write about love too, about something joyful. I write about just my life experiences, and they hadn't really been about. Obviously, they weren't about motherhood until this album. So this specific album has, a different theme, but it's really just I'm writing about the human connection. I'm writing about the human experience, and just how trying myself through my own writing, almost trying to like use it as a mantra and like a meditation to be present and to be mindful, and to it's a lot of kind of Buddhist inspiration that I have, though it's not religious in any way, but it's really just about kind of acceptance, right? It's like accepting that this is life, and accepting how things ebb and flow, and really the change. That's probably the most difficult thing to accept, is that things don't stay the same. And that's probably the most, as a mom now, and just seeing my son change. They change every few months, it's just, so you end up having to get used to that and accepting it, and loving it, and just kind of always being appreciative of what you have. Hi Tina, I see you. Thank you, Jamie. Looking forward. I know I'm excited to share this music with everybody. My mentors, well, I did just watch a few of these the series, just to kind of see what the energy was like. And Tierney Sutton was one of the speakers that I watched. So she people probably know, but she was my first private vocal jazz teacher when I was a teenager. So we've been through it all, and she's kind of been like a big sister to me. So she was really at the very beginning. A little before that, beautiful teachers I had were Pat Bass, who I call Miss B. She was my high school choir director. And then when I was at UCLA, Kenny Burrell was there, and Billy Higgins was around back then. Barbara Morrison, wonderful. Michelle Weir, Ruth Price. Then when I did the Monk Institute, Terrence Blanchard was the artistic director. Of course, Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter kind of, passed through and taught. I mean, there were so many living legends that passed through when I was at the institute, now the Herbie Hancock Institute. Wow, so many. Carmen Lundy was another singer that came through. And lessons I've learned. I mean, I feel like you just have to be the goal with life, and with all of these other artists that we have as friends and as mentors. It's just being present, right? It's just being present and kind of trying to soak in and take in everything. My first thought is like flashing back on being at UCLA and being, early 20s, and having these amazing teachers, some of which are not even alive anymore. And, but having these teachers that are, passing on advice and what feels critical at that age, where you feel like you have to kind of, you get defensive about taking feedback. I remember that feeling. And now, I just turned 45 a couple of weeks ago, and so that's a lot older than college years. And I feel like now it's like, if anyone had anything to say, it's like there's an acceptance, and kind of like I can bring it in, take it on, and kind of process it and filter it, and that's helpful. But I flash back on, if I could give myself advice, it would be, to breathe through those moments and just take in anything that anyone has to say, and just kind of, weigh it and figure out where it's coming from and what you can take from it. How do contemporary cover selections for the album drift in? Oh yes, cool. Well, yeah, there's two of them this time. So Sweet Love, Anita Baker's Sweet Love, and David Bowie's No Plan. I'll just mention a little bit. I guess I don't have to stop if there's more questions. Bring them on. I'm here. um, but the Anita Baker, I mean, she's just the queen, right? I mean, she can sing anything, and just her voice is so it's such an instrument, how she used her voice, and really really paved the way. I don't there was not anyone no one sounds like her, and nobody sounded like her, in the 80s. And so, I gave you my age already. So, when that song came out, I was 10. So I always like finding these songs that are from my childhood, the earlier years of my life that really mean something to me, and to try to honor them, and then to try to, but to try to tell my own story. So I obviously don't sound like Anita Baker. I'm not going to do a real true cover and have any sense of, imitating what she did, but it's kind of trying to take what's pure, and the heart, keeping the core and the heart of the song, and then kind of, telling my own story, bringing in my own vocabulary to that. So our version is very different from hers, but I hope that it, still, it just gives a new energy to that piece. And then the other cover is David Bowie's No Plan, which is one of the last pieces that he ever wrote. It's on an EP that came out after Black Star, and Mark, my husband, was the drummer on that album, in that project, and he played on the original piece. So it was a song that meant something to me, that I always really loved, and I wanted to, again, just to honor it, and to try to do justice. And that's a track that I have Mark guest on, because I wanted him to kind of represent that connection, and bring in the family, and that honoring. So yeah, that's something you can hear right now. You can hear both of those songs now as singles, and then the rest on Friday. Let's see. An itch to listen to Anita the last couple of weeks. Yes. Oh, cool. Yeah, Anita Baker, just incredible. I with her stuff, my flashback is listening to cassettes instead of vinyl. So I had a bunch of cassettes of hers, and just I just love her. I don't know if she ever hears this version. I hope that she blesses it with her, she appreciates it, and thinks it's okay. But she's just amazing. So yeah, it's really, it's another branch. It's if you've kind of followed what I've been doing, it's not really veering off too far. It's kind of just another extension of what was already there, and what I've already had a love for. And I'm thrilled to finally share it. And yeah, you can find it everywhere. You can find it, obviously everything's digital and streaming, or you can buy it if you want. You can actually have a physical copy. It will be out on vinyl, which that's a nice coming full circle to my vinyl story. I've never had any of my music on vinyl, so that is exciting for me. And that you can, order all of those things, and there's even a store. With my mom's art, we put up a little store with Society 6, and you can get, the album artwork printed on anything, pillows and mugs and thermoses and notebooks. So it's all out there. Okay, I'll stay. Let's see these questions. What is some new inspiration you're finding back home in LA? Well, I grew up here, so I grew up in Los Angeles, and then moved to the East Coast, and lived there for 16 years and then came back here. So for me, being here in LA, that feeling of is just the climate, the energy of it being warm all the time is really lovely. And now with this year of being home, every day it's gardening. We planted a garden. If I could open these up, I could show you. But just gardening and just taking care of the home and just being outside, going out to the beach and going to other gardens and just kind of being out in nature, taking hikes. So I would love to say it's connecting with family and friends here, which I've tried to, but obviously we can't really have those kind of gatherings. But so it's really just appreciating that who's here. And how we can connect. And I love the East Coast. I love seasons, but I think because I grew up here, my heart just feels and body just feels really settled when it's warm. Oh, you love what I've done, all the meaning behind it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And these are just compliments. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I can't see all of your names, but I guess I'll see them when they pop up when I rewatch this. Thank you. I see Dina's name there. Thanks congrats on the vinyl. It is cool, and it's colored vinyl too. It's like I haven't seen it yet, but it's not just a standard black record. It's going to be this beautiful kind of rose color. So thank you for tuning in and watching and always supporting what I've put out, and I appreciate everyone's patience when I was kind of just being a mom and not really out there and act as active. And I was ready to be active and tour this album, but obviously we have to wait. But I do assume that we will be able to do that and play some shows live. That just seems so crazy. It's crazy that it is crazy that's an odd thought, but it will be wonderful to be able to play this music someday live to you guys, and stay tuned. I think because this is the way that we're communicating, we have some ideas of ways to connect, maybe a listening party with the band and some kind of Q&A setting like this, maybe some interviews and some ways that we can share the album and kind of talk about it and connect on it in a safe way. So I will be sharing that all within days. So thank you. If there's nothing else in this little chat, I think we'll just sign off, and I appreciate all of you so much. And thank you, Gail, very much.